Hey, it's my friends. Good morning. It's now, is it Tuesday? It's March 31st. We've made it through March. We're going to move into April tomorrow. We're hoping that April will bring not only flowers, I saw a bunch of flowers in my yard yesterday, but also will bring some direction and relief to what we're going through right now. We've been gathering on these daily talks to talk about mental health and emotional intelligence and things that can help us during these times to grow stronger, not simply to endure or certainly not to get worse or to be taken under, but to grow stronger. And we're using this right now. If you remember, we're talking about these 5 different things that we can do to be inspired. We're talking about getting stronger spiritually, physically, intellectually, relationally. That's what we're going to talk about today. And tomorrow we'll talk about getting stronger emotionally. In many ways, the emotional resource is the one that we're dealing with the most because there's so many emotions related to the stress of being in this quarantine situation, of not being at school, of not being connected. But today we're going to talk about the relational one. I hope you like my sweater. I wore this nice sweater today. I wear this sweater a lot because in some ways, it really is the most important article of clothing that I have because it was knitted for me by my grandmother. Now, my grandmother died in 2002, I think. So she's been passed for 18 years, almost 20 years. But I loved my grandmother. My grandmother did a lot of knitting, and I have many pictures of me from when I was younger of things that my grandmother had knitted for me. This sweater is the last thing I have that she knitted. And when I put it on, it reminds me of her. It makes me feel connected with my family. And it makes me feel just a little bit better about myself and my relationships with other people. The problem with relationships right now is that we are stuck with a very few relationships that we can interact with regularly. And certainly in school world, we have a tendency to identify more with relationships of people we go to school with than even with our own family. And this is something to be aware of as we go through this time for parents and especially for older kids, to be aware that when we're at school, the whole school system, the whole model of how school works encourages identification with our peers, even as opposed to identification with our family. And now all of a sudden we find ourselves having to live with our family all the time. And I recognize that for many of us, the school system provides us an opportunity to have a break from our family, to make it easier in some ways to deal with our family. And so it may be kind of actually stressful to live all together all the time. And yet, the relationships that you have with your family are by far the most important in terms of defining who you are, what you think about the world, how you think relationships work. These are people that will be with you your whole life, even if you don't have connection with them as much when you are a grown-up, as an adult. Parents, you know that the relationships that you have right now, there are a few that you have from when you are younger, but the relationships that have endured, the ones that you still have to process and deal with, are your family ones. So this is an excellent opportunity for us to get stronger in our relationships with our family, because those are the relationships that in many ways define us, make us who we are, and determine the ways that we deal with the world. So we're going to work on getting stronger with our relationships. Here's the problem. Stress has a tendency to isolate us. Stress, anxiety, worry, boredom, all these things that are taking place during the quarantine have a tendency to make us want to isolate from others, to be alone, to not really want to interact. And the longer we go through this, the more people may find themselves living in a house where we're separating and distancing ourselves from each other. And so we want to resist that. We're going to work against that. Not that being alone is a problem. Please, be alone when you need to be alone. Find some times to be by yourself. But we're going to work really hard to also not be alone all the time. So here are some things that we can do. I'm going to give you just a few pointers. I wrote down some things that we can work on, so I'll look at my notes here so I don't forget any of them, like I did with the water. Remember what I said about water? Don't forget to drink lots of water. It's so important. That was in the physical resource. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to not be alone all the time. Now, for kids and parents alike, we're going to be intentional about not being alone all the time. And that means that we're going to make ourselves interact with each other during parts of the day. But for parents, please be aware when your kids just want to be in the room all the time, that they may need some assistance interacting and coming out of what has become a safe place, but also can be kind of a sad and a depressing place. Another thing I want to caution parents about today. Parents, be aware that during these times, there may be a tendency to rely on the older kids to take care of the younger kids. If you're in a family where there are older and younger kids all living at home, there may be a tendency to overly rely on the older kids to manage the younger kids. Now, that's a part of family life, and there's nothing wrong with that. But be aware that your older kids may also need some individual attention. They may need also some ways to process their emotional experience as they go through this. And an over-reliance on them to watch the youngers may leave them not feeling like their needs are being met or that they're being recognized. So be really careful. This is just something that we can fall into really easily if we're not careful about it. Here's something that you can do to make sure that at least people are not alone all day. We've talked about this at various points. Have family meetings every day. Maybe gather together for dinner, maybe gather together after dinner. Talk about how everybody's feeling. Talk about the things that we did during the day. Encourage each other. If you're a family that prays together, or maybe you should be and you want to start maybe doing something like that, you could have a brief little prayer just to say that we need some help. If that's a part of your spiritual life, that would be a good thing to do. But have family meetings that force everybody to come into the same space and listen and talk to each other. Read alouds are really important as a way to build family identity. When you read aloud, when you get a story that everybody can listen to, and believe me, no matter the age, everybody likes to be read to. This is actually something that's a part of the way that we learn, and neurologically it's really true. Kids love to be read to. Even older kids, if they're given permission, love to be read to. And so perhaps finding a book that the whole family can listen to and enjoy would be something that you can do that binds the family together and engages them in a story. Read a chapter together, read a little bit, a few pages, and just be engaged with a story together that you're all connecting with. Another thing that we want to do is we want to build relationships with people who are not living at home. So especially relatives that you're connected with, that you're close to, or maybe some that are even a little more distant. Let's find a way to connect with them. Let's be intentional about maybe writing letters or sending texts or connecting with people that we're not connected with. Related to that then, we're also going to be really intentional about connecting not just via texting or social media posts or Snapchatting or Instagram, but we're actually going to use our phones. Some of you know that actually on a phone, you can actually talk to real people. You can hear real voices and have a real-time conversation. Maybe we're going to do voice to voice. Maybe we're going to do something like FaceTime or Duo or any of those Zoom meetings, anything that you can do where you can look at each other as best as we're allowed to. We're going to do that so that we stay as best as we can connected with people that are not within our house. Why are we going to do this? We're going to do this because the relationships that are at home are the ones that define us, that make us who we are, that tell us how to see the world and what we believe about ourselves. Parents, your kids need to know so much right now that you affirm them, that you approve of them, that you care about them, that they are okay in your eyes. Kids, your parents need to know right now that you respect them, that you recognize them as also going through some very difficult things that are really grown-up problems. You guys need each other, and if you work on these relational things, you will become stronger as a family and stronger as individuals, so that when you go out of this place, this time of quarantine, back into the so-called real world of school and work and sports and dance and music and all these other activities, that you yourself, because you've built on relationships, will be stronger yourself, and you'll be stronger as a family for anything else that comes your way. So let's work on relational things today as we grow stronger. Tomorrow we'll talk about emotional things, and then also going to come up with a way to put all these things together to kind of monitor and self-assess what things you guys are doing at your homes to grow stronger as we continue to go through this COVID quarantine time. Hey, I love you guys. I miss you so much relationally. It's been really kind of a struggle for me. I'm a pretty relational guy, but I trust that you are out there, that you are taking care of yourselves, and that we'll be together again in what will seem like a very short time. Thanks a lot. We'll see you tomorrow.